Hi everyone, I'm Scott Adamson, the Cù Bòcan Global Brand Ambassador, and I'm delighted to be joined all the way from Amsterdam here by Timo Janse, a world-renowned bartender who we've invited to unlock the unusual. Timo, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Very excited for what we're going to be doing over the next couple of sessions and trying some great whiskies, but more importantly, trying some of your creations.
Thanks.
So we're going to be talking a lot about Cù Bòcan over the next three sessions, but I think the best place to start a conversation about Cù Bòcan is with signature, our signature expression. Cù Bòcan's an experimental Highland single malt that really was born out of an experiment back in 2005. It was the end of the year, it was getting into December, and we had made our production quota for non-peated whiskey, and our distillery manager bought a batch of peated barley to the distillery and run it through the stills. And since then, we've been filling casks, bourbon barrels, virgin oak casks, and Oloroso sherry casks. And these are the casks that still go into our Cù Bòcan signature today. And from the quality of that spirit that came in 2005, really developed Cù Bòcan. But before we go on to have a taste of Cù Bòcan signature, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into bartending and what you do today.
Well, like so many other bartenders and eventually as a bar owner and business owner, this was something that I didn't dream about becoming this growing up. As a child, nevertheless, I had a big passion for mixing things together. My first recollection of that was when I went into our garden and I was making this kind of witch's potion with snails and other things that I found in the garden because I was trying to poison my mother actually with a drink. So I was trying to find these things because yeah, really like brewing was always something that I was really into. She didn't want to taste it though, like my little creation, because there was like really like snails coming out of it. But I was always very keen on mixing things together, and my taste profile has always been that I always very open to different flavors. Growing up, I will try anything once when it comes to trying out new flavors or foods, which was I think a joy for my parents as well, because they could take me to a restaurant and I would literally, there was nothing too weird for me to try, even as a small child. And then growing up a bit further, I'm coming from a very, I would say, educational university nest. But my father is a chemist and my mother teaches Italian at the University of Amsterdam. So it was kind of a given that I had to go to college. And my grades were okay, so I decided on economics and accounting because that was the highest opportunity for a job. I had no other ambition for it at all. And in college, I learned that, you know, what an accountant really does, because that was I was, you know, developing into. And there was like, for me, there was zero creativity in it. Like a creative accountant is exactly what you don't want in accounting because they land in jail, right? So, so I was frantically looking for something else that I could enjoy instead of all the other people that I was going to college with. Their only goal was to make a lot of money. And for me, that was never enough, I would say. Like just work to get, you know, like your salary was just, it didn't really vibe with me. And then luckily through multiple roads, actually, I got to be behind the bar in a lot of temp jobs. And it was love at first sight. And it was just in a dive bar, really. But I enjoyed being behind the bar so much that I really felt that I was at the right spot in my life and doing the right thing that I was supposed to be doing. And that was an eye-opener for me. And when you get into bartending, of course, there is the joy of the social element of it. But it wasn't until I really got focused on the mixology part of it that I understood that there's actually a whole world behind it. There is, you know, behind the bar, you never, and you can never stop developing. You know, like you can learn more about each individual ingredient, about each individual spirit, about each individual technique, and you can do that for multiple lifetimes, and that's what I think is great about it. You can develop and you can pick out of it what you want, and you will never be done, and you will never be bored, and that's, I think, is great about it, and this really piqued my interest. And after that, after that, I just went and I just worked, and I'm so glad I did, because it never really felt like work after that, because it was really. I could be working in the first job that I did. I could be working 80 plus hours a week, or even 90, and it didn't tire me at all, because I was enjoying every moment of it, and I was enjoying working more than being off. So it was never a chore to begin with. And it made me decide very much that for me, it's important that I enjoy everything that I do, and every step, and that it should be a joy to do, or why bother doing it? There is enough to be done that you don't have to spend your life doing something you hate, because there are other things that you can be doing that you enjoy, and maybe they won't give you as much money, but at least it will be something that you enjoy doing, and it makes makes time goes by a lot easier and more enjoyable.
So you went from working in bars to now owning your own bars. Tell us a little bit about your own establishments now.
Well, I currently am the co-owner with Tess Posthumus of Dutch Courage and Flying Dutchmen Cocktails. So Flying Dutchmen Cocktails came about almost 3 years ago. So we had, it was really a dream come true. I think anybody that's working full-time in a bar, for them, it's a dream to own their own bar, to give things their own twist, because you always have your own vision on things, and you always run up against a wall where obviously you are not the owner, so you're not the person that is entirely in charge of how everything is run. So I think if you've been doing it long enough and with enough joy, you will want to do it yourself, because you have your own ideas about how things should be done. And it's not a given that you have the fortune to be able to do that. Most people, through circumstances, don't get the chance to own their own bar, and a lot of people do get the chance, but they are not able to make it work, because it is a different challenge as well. But luckily, because of my history, I think as well within the field of economics, in addition to it, I think it really came together really nicely, and it's been a joy to do so as well. And earlier this year, we opened Dutch Courage, our second bar. So Flying Dutchman Cocktail is focused on classic cocktails, sharing the stories of classic spirits, classic drinks. We are at Flying Dutchman now, and having the joy of having a huge back bar of things that we can use, and stories that we can tell, and unique tastes that we can put into classic cocktails. Whereas with Dutch Courage, we zoom in on Dutch spirits, and we zoom in on the Dutch history, and put in more, I would say, signature cocktails with that. So we put in a lot more, into the techniques. Whereas here we are, let's say, we focus on not creating new cocktails necessarily, but sharing older stories using unique spirits and getting an appreciation for spirits. And I think that's what Cù Bòcan falls in very, very nicely, because it is a traditional style of spirit. But I think what's unique about it is that the drink we're going to be making, if you would make it with a different scotch, or even a different expression, it's going to taste completely different. And I think that's the sign of a great cocktail. That's really what we're about at Flying Dutchman Cocktails.
Fantastic. You mentioned a couple of things there that are really interesting. Your creativity and your curiosity. They're incredible traits that really underpin Cù Bòcan as well. That willingness to try something new and to get creative with whiskey. And I think Signature is a whiskey that really exemplifies that. I've got a glass here, and I'm sure you've got a glass with you. This is the only ongoing product in our range, and we'll talk about the other products as we move on to future videos. But Signature is really the whiskey that made our name with Cù Bòcan, and it does use those casks that we've been filling way back since 2005. So as well as having our lightly peated spirit, which brings this signature wisp of smoke, there's also the sweetness from first fill bourbon barrels. Cù Bòcan Signature is a very creamy whiskey. There's then a dried fruit, and almost, for me, like a paprika type of spice that we get from Oloroso sherry butts. And then finally, we've got virgin North American oak cask, which just give a lovely oaky spice. And it's a wonderful whiskey, so cheers. So you've taken Cù Bòcan Signature, and you've got it there. What do you think of it?
It's great. I love, like the complexity, how it moves forward, how it's not one-sided, but the complexity of it all. Really, the amazing fact of using these 3 different woods and making sure that they combine well together. It's great, and it's what you're looking for in a cocktail as well. You want each element to play a part. You don't want one to be overpowered. You want to enjoy each one of them and what they bring into it. And I think that's well done, great job there. And from what I get, it has that peatiness, but it's not at the forefront. It's not the only player here. There's a lot more going on, and you discuss like that fruitiness as well. But it also, at the same time, it's creative, but it knows where it's coming from. So this is not something completely out of the box craziness. This has its own character, but in respect of the spirit that we're talking about here, and I think that is really the fine line that I feel, and it's also when you're creating cocktails with it, you want to honor the spirit, you want to honor the ingredients that you're working with, and not you want to be creative, but you don't want to go overboard. You want to make sure that there is a beautiful balance between it all, and that's really where the quality of a liquid for me shines, and it's definitely does so here.
Yeah, it's a great whiskey. For me, it's a wonderful drinking whiskey. But what I think is great about Signature, and it's something that we've come across a few times, is that it really is a great whiskey for mixing and for making cocktails with. And I believe the cocktail you're about to make me, or make us, should I say, is one of my absolute favorites, a twist on one of my absolute favorites. So please talk us through this.
Yeah. So we're going to do a drink called the HARLEM Stir. And basically, so I love Rob Roy's, I love a Manhattan. And I think what's great about it, as I discussed earlier, is that with a Rob Roy, you can use one or the other. It makes a huge difference which whiskey you're using. And I think that when you start talking about, like a great cocktail like that, that's beautiful. And what we've done here is we've taken that approach, but we put some twists on it. So obviously we're going to start off with a big wallop of Signature. So 50 ml of that. And what would a Rob Roy be without some red vermouth? Now, this whiskey has, it has some big elements, some big flavors. You said it's great for mixing, and it is. But it is so because it also has a lot going on. So to combine it, we use the Carpano red vermouth. Why? Because it has some bold flavor on its own. Not every whiskey can withstand the boldness of these flavors, but this whiskey can. Then to finish off, we're using a Palo Cortado sherry. Now, you could argue that because of the barrels that are being used, the Oloroso, that you should be using Oloroso. However, within the flavor profile, that doesn't make any sense. Nevertheless, Palo Cortado, with its unique flavoring profiles, for those of you that don't know it, it is one of the most unique expressions of sherry. And really, I think it has a lot of, in a way, similarities to the Cù Bòcan in the way that it has a signature taste to it. It's unique. Its uniqueness makes it perfect for it, and the bartender's favorite, which I think goes well for the Signature too. So we top it up with ice, and then we're going to stir it. Now this is a relaxing drink, and I think what is the element, what's important here is that we have 3 ingredients. Just 3 ingredients, just like the types of wood being used, and it's like and it's a balance, it's a fine line that you want to be doing. So think about, this is really what we are about at Flying Dutchman as well, is that we think about the exact brand. So we look at the whiskey, we look at the vermouth, we look at the sherry in this drink. In particular, what do they bring? What do they bring as a category? But more importantly, what does this specific bottle bring to the table, and does it does it deliver? And it sure does in this drink. So we stir it. For those of you that are into their bartending, always make sure you stir it long enough. Don't understir, because you You're getting, like that dilution in there, which is going to help make it smoother. We're going to make it nice and cold, but we're not going to agitate the drink too much. I'm going to grab my glass. Always be sure to grab your glass from the freezer if at home, and whenever possible, please try to keep your glassware in the freezer, as it helps a lot by keeping the drink chilled. Now I'm just going to strain it. Beautiful. And we're going to garnish it with Revolution cherry. So this is my own brand of cherries that I've launched a few years ago, made locally in the Betuwe from fresh cherries, taking the pits out and put on cherry eau de vie that was made in a small batch of the same cherries. So again, when you're looking at products, try to always envision using, the best that you can have. Think about a reason, and what this cherry is going to do, because of the eau de vie, is going to give this little hint of fruitiness. We talked about a little bit of that dried fruitiness. Now we're going to pull that into the cherry side of flavor, but just a hint. And you're going to end up with the HARLEM stir, which I think is a delicious drink that you can make at home or in a bar. And it's just, I think it's a new classic. So I really enjoy having this.
Yeah, it's fantastic what you can do with 3 ingredients. And I've given it a crack at myself at home. Here's one I made earlier. So cheers.
Going to you. Hey, cheers.
It's absolutely delicious. And I think, as I mentioned, Rob Roy is one of my favorite cocktails. And with the use of the Palo Cortado sherry, it really brings out quite a different element from the Cù Bòcan. The smoke subsides a little bit, but you get a huge amount of flavor from the whiskey coming through.
I agree, and I just think that beautiful things, it doesn't need to be highly complicated. It's like in the kitchen. Sometimes if you work with top-notch quality fresh ingredients, if you work with ingredients that play well together, if you know what you're doing because of the experience that you have, you're going to end up with a beautiful result without needing to grab like really complicated things, or having 25 ingredients, or needing to use very complicated techniques. And that's really what we're all about here at Flying Dutchman. Just making sure that you respect the ingredients that you're working with, because that's what it is. Like when you're working with an Italian chef that just works with these beautiful fresh produce, like when you honor the ingredients you are working with, you're going to end up with a beautiful drink without having to put too much makeup on it, as we would tend to say. Like something that is really beautiful does not need a lot of makeup on it. It's just beauty.
Absolutely. Well, you've set the bar incredibly high here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got in store for Creation 1 and Creation 2 over the next few sessions. So cheers, Timo.
Cheers.